I'd like to show you a game by one of the all-time chess greats, Garry Kasparov. He was born on the 13th of April 1963, which makes him 55 today. Happy birthday to you, Gary. He achieved everything you can achieve in the chess world. He was world champion from 1985 to the year 2000 and won first place in so many tournaments and all the prestigious tournaments, basically. Finally retired from serious tournament chess in 2005, having just won the Linares tournament. And I'd like to show you his last ever tournament victory, last ever game that he won in tournament chess from that tournament. By the way, I should say that this video is being posted a couple of days in advance for my patrons, and they also get to see this video without advertisements, which might be an incentive for some of you to sign up to PowerPlayChess on patreon.com. So without further ado, Michael Adams, I'm afraid, is the victim here, my compatriot. Michael Adams with white, playing against Garry Kasparov in round 12 of the Linares tournament 2005. So Adams opens with his customary e4, and sometimes he plays more closed variations of the Sicilian, but he was obviously up for a fight today and happy to play an open Sicilian, and Kasparov played his favourite Najdorf variation, and one of my favourites too. And Adams played bishop e3, so this often leads into a kind of English attack, so-called English attack with f3 and queen d2 and g4. Here black has a choice. Three very serious alternatives. You can play e5, always been my favourite move, staking a claim in the centre, and Kasparov has played all three of these moves, by the way. Knight g4 is very interesting. You chase the bishop round like this, and then g5, which is very sharp, very forcing variations. Or you can play e6, and this move really has been Kasparov's favourite when facing bishop e3, so it can lead into Scheveningen type structures for black. And here, well, white has many moves. You can play g4, you can play f4, you can play queen d2, you can play f3, all possible, but Adams played more modestly with bishop e2, queen c7, and so, after white castles, we're just going into a normal Scheveningen variation, or you can play a4 first as well. But Adams plays queen d2, so this is a strange hybrid of a kind of English attack, looking to castle queenside, and also with bishop on e2. I mean, if one's going to do this, personally I think it's better to play g4 straight away, and then you can possibly go back to queen d2. But anyway, Adams played queen d2. b5, already striking out and wanting to push the knight from c3, the knight that protects the pawn on e4. So therefore a3, stopping b4. Bishop b7, hitting the pawn here, so f3. And now knight c6. So very often the knight comes to d7 in these lines, and then maybe to b6 or e5. But Kasparov has something a little bit different in mind. But it's very important that black gets his counterplay going on the queen side quickly. So anyway, knight c6 fits in with that. And here, I think g4 is the best idea. It looks like a funny hybrid. Normally one would have this pawn on g4 with the bishop on f1. But anyway, I think g4 is best, not yet committing the king. But Adams played castles queenside straight away, and I have to say this was brave. This was really brave, because Kasparov was able to break open the queenside straight away with b4, and this really has to be taken. and knight takes b4. C file open, b file potentially open as well. Well, it is open, and maybe even sometimes queen a5. Now for the moment, white is very solid, but it feels a bit funny to me to allow this. Anyway, Adams got his kingside play going finally with g4. And now Kasparov starts to develop on the kingside, because really he's going to need the support of the second rook if he's going to get his queenside play going. So Adams continues with his kingside play. So this is all fairly straightforward. I mean, these moves seem to be very logical. Now this next move from Kasparov is very interesting, because black has many ways to try and develop his queenside play. For example, do you play knight e5 and perhaps into c4? Do you castle straight away here? Do you put a rook on the c file or the b file, or do you play queen a5 straight away? But Kasparov played knight c5. And we're going to see that this move is actually multifaceted. In a second, it'll become clearer exactly why he's put the knight on c5. I would say not an obvious move. I mean, it's going in the right direction, but we'll see how important this move is a little later on. King b1 from Adams. Okay, that's an important move. It's just to bring the king away from the c file, and it also preempts a move like queen a5, potentially making an incursion on the a file. But now the king is on b1, then rook b8. Now there are a few pieces in between, but this attack on the b file is obviously potentially very dangerous. Adams continues on the king side, h5. And now, how many of you would be brave enough to castle into the attack with castle's kingside here? That's what Kasparov did. In a sense, you could say that waiting around in the middle is just as dangerous. In fact, the king is reasonably secure on the king side, and I think this shows how keen Kasparov's judgment is, that he actually appreciated that the king was reasonably secure after g6. Okay, it's the obvious move to just detonate the king side. And it's very easy to go wrong here. So for example, let's start with h takes g6. Then h6 is a nice move. So we just want to trade and break through on the h file. That wouldn't be good. So what about f takes g6? Very risky as well. After this, well, if pawn takes, then, well, let's just pile up on that pawn. Looks really dangerous. And e6 has been weakened as well. So after g6, what's the response? Well, to Kasparov, a very normal response. Just bishop f6. So not reacting at all to this pawn push, and that's definitely the best move. Bishop not only looks over in this direction, but defends the sensitive point on g7, but also opens up the 7th rank, so that, well, for example, let's see, after h6, if white tries to open the files, then f takes g6. This is very important. The queen actually defends along the 7th rank, and you can see how important that knight is on c5, defending the e6 pawn. That's one of the points of putting the knight there. Okay, what are the alternatives? Let's look at taking. Now, if h6, of course, we can just keep the position closed with g6, no problem at all. What about bishop g5 to trade these bishops off, and then g7 is a bit weaker? Well, we avoid that. Bishop b5. Now, this might look a little bit flimsy, but the point is, after f4, the tactics favour black. knight takes e4. This is winning for black, actually. And now the threats on these files start to look very real indeed. So if pawn takes, well, you could just take here, but even stronger is to play rook over. So now there are 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces looking at the c2 pawn. And if the rook comes over, then queen a5 is deadly, threatening a mate, and the king is not going to escape from there. Or if bishop d3, we just take and put the queen on a5 again, and absolutely no escape with the rook there. Back we go. So it's not easy for white to break through on the king side at all. And it's such a solid move, actually, bishop f6. Adams played rook g1, which feels like a useful building up move, but no panic from Kasparov at all. Simply bishop a8, unmasking the rook here. So now there's only a knight in between, and we'll be able to get through to the b2 pawn. Very hard to see how white can actually break through here. Adams played bishop g5. Of course, he desperately wants to trade those bishops, and then g7 will be much weaker. Kasparov avoids that with bishop e5, and again there'll be tactics on e4 if white wants to play f4. Adams traded, and here he made a terrible blunder, obviously under pressure because it's very hard to break through. It was recommended afterwards by Kasparov's trainer De Hoyen just to bring the bishop back, but it doesn't feel as though this is putting any real pressure on black. For example, you might play queen b6 here, just lining up on b2, or queen a5. Just need to get rid of this knight and things start to happen to the king, followed by rook c8, and pressure starts to build here. Or maybe rook c8 first and keep the options open. Perhaps queen b6 now, perhaps queen a5, depending on what white does on the next turn. So it feels as though black is really building very, very quickly on the queen side, but white's attack, not so easy to get it going. In any case, that didn't happen. Adams played knight b3, trying to block the b file. Well motivated in that sense, but he's overlooked a tactic. Knight takes c2. I'm sure he saw this, but it's a tactic later on I think he overlooked. So if queen takes c2, then rook b3. Well, black wins a pawn, and the attack just rolls on beautifully. So knight takes c5. Now, I mean, one could even play queen takes here, but knight a3 check first. If king c1, then queen takes knight, and you've won a pawn, and it looks like game over to me. So king a2, and now queen takes c5. So material is now even. Knight a4 hitting the queen. And here's the killer move. So if the queen moves somewhere, then white can take this, but knight c2. I mean, maybe Adams missed this a few moves ago. There are other moves for black, actually, but knight c2 is a killer. If knight takes queen, then rook takes b2. Checkmate. So Adams played king b1. But after queen a3, he had to resign. Let's see if queen takes knight. Rook c8. So for the moment, black is a piece down, but rook c8 is absolutely fatal, hitting the queen. Queen moves away, queen takes a4, and b2 is going to cave in with total destruction. And just look what's happened to white's queen side. But Kasparov's king completely secure on h7. Well, a devastating game, and I think that really shows Kasparov's strengths, his superb opening preparation, and his understanding of these sharp Sicilian positions, but also how he has such an instinct for the attack. Now, this was not Michael Adams' finest game, but still, tremendous performance from Kasparov. If you'd like to see more games by Kasparov, then do check out the Kasparov playlist. You can find it if you click on the info tab up there. And, well, I've recorded quite a few videos by Kasparov in the past on this channel. For example, you can see his brilliancy against Topalov from '99, and well, many other games. Game against Carlsen, you'll find lots of computer games there. You can find World Championship games against Karpov and against Anand as well, and more besides. So do check out the Kasparov playlist up there. I should say the channel has reached another milestone. We now have over 40,000 subscribers. So we want to grow the channel. We want to get people involved. So please do recommend the channel to your friends and get them to subscribe. And if you haven't subscribed, do click on the button. It's free. And if you want to get instant notifications, click on the bell as well. Thanks for watching.